We'll call orders forum at 6:10. We'll take roll. Trustee Romero is absent. Mr. Sullivan, Dr. Hamby, Ms. Hub, Dr. Ramirez, Tammy. Did we say Tammy Syria or she's not?
She's not here yet, so.
And then Mrs. Torres. Okay. Well, then can I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I move that we adopt the agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay. Any comments? Okay. Then all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. None opposed. One absent. Do we have any public comments on closed session items? None. Then we will adjourn to closed session. Okay, so we're returning to open session. 6:49 and no actions were taken in closed session.
Cool.
So we can go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so can I get a motion to approve the meeting minutes for the regular board meeting on May 16th, 2023, the regular board meeting on June 13th, 2023, and the special board meeting held on June 15th, 2023.
I move that we approve the minutes for meetings on May 16th, 2023, June 13th, 2023, and June 15th, 2023.
Any seconds?
I'll second the motion.
So
I know, I wrote down Hub, but she beat you to it. Yeah. Any comments? Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. 4-1, one absent. And then do we have any audience to address the board? None. Well, then we can go ahead and move along to the superintendent's report.
More than anything else, that's really our focal point right now, is just making sure we're readying the campus, readying our classrooms, that staff and everything is situated to start to receive kids. And just today we had our first meeting and a welcome back, classified and certificated, really great atmosphere, a lot of positivity. And really we're going to talk about the opening. Here are just a few items to note. We've put out the back to school family dashboard. That is something that is updated annually and sometimes even within the school year, just to make sure that parents are able to see in one place, all the information that will come to them. We're coming along with our re-enrollment. That's basically updating all our information. Several years ago, we moved to an online platform. We moved away from paper-based. We still have it available, but on a more limited basis. But it's been, by and large, fairly successful for us to use this, and parents have appreciated, staff have appreciated having the ease, and especially if your contact information really hasn't changed all that much. So it makes it much easier to keep updated. And it's not something that happens only at the start of the year, but something that parents can readily update along the way.
Fill out those emergency cards at the beginning of each year.
Not anymore.
No more, no more.
And whoever you put on as your pediatrician, dentist, emergency contacts, it remembers from last
Yeah.
year. So it's great.
So all this information just pulls, and the beauty of it is that, there's apps, there's obviously, any device would be able to log you in. And, for us, it's great because we still retain the ability to, approve or reject in certain instances, not that it happens, but information, and in other words, vet the information that's coming in as being accurate and appropriate, without having to physically come in or receive and retrieve print documents. So it's been much, much easier. We moved in this direction my second year here.
I think we've done it.
It's this the
full
third
years.
year.
This
This is
is
the
good.
third year. So it would have been my second year here. And I think it's made the paper shuffle at the beginning of the year virtually non-existent. But it's really helped. And I think that's been much appreciated by everybody. But those are important things because we do need that information updated. We do need things to be current. And this is a way of ensuring that. We also, this is another way of ensuring and making sure that any updates to our handbooks, policies and such, at least are making their way to parents and families, and that there is an acknowledgement that they received, read, and understood the information. School hours have not changed with the exception of TK. Our TK for the first 6 weeks will be a shortened, along with our K, will be shortened, but after that will be effectively a full day TK program. And that's very exciting for us because I think that we have seen a significant amount of success in preparing our kids and using that additional time to help launch just their academic journey. And so the hours, though, for parents have really not changed over the last several years, and certainly not from last year. Meals continue to be free to students. That continues to be a service that kids will undertake, and we're happy to be able to provide that moving forward. Let me make a couple of mentions to learning and engagement. There's a lot that we can talk about here. There's a lot more that we will talk about come September, but I wanted to come back to something that we discussed back in July. So we arrived, and the board arrived at areas of focus, areas that were really important to continue to zero in on and keep at the forefront. So here they are: facilities modernization and bond program, the development of Measure O, implementation of the Mesa Union Framework for the Future and Learner Profile, and professional learning training for staff, engagement of community partners, and partnerships. For sure, the next steps is to develop more concrete actions aligned to that and start to attribute timelines that feel realistic yet ambitious. So that's still something that I'm developing to bring back to the board. But I wanted to spend just a little bit of time on the implementation of the Mesa Union Framework, because I think that that's something that bears some repeating, so or some just additional context. So I'm just going to zero in on that, things that you've heard, but then add a little bit more context. So the next slide, please, Brianna.
One more.
Yeah, one more. So I wanted to zero in on this one because making sense of and maintaining focus for anybody as a staff is challenging. We have so many different moving parts and so many different areas that require our attention, namely, the kids and families and communication there. But we have also all of these different plans. And my goal is to try to make sure that those plans work with one another. They don't by design work by each other, but the idea is for them not to work at odds and not to be competing. So you see here, the Mesa Union Framework for the Future and the Learner Profile is really a foundation, whether you look at that as the heart of it or the foundation. The idea is that it really influences all the other plans that we have in place. One thing that was left from last year that was left unattended was the scorecard. And that is, I think, a way of making concrete how we intend to measure our success, and what tells us not that we've arrived, but that we are headed in the right direction. So that is something that I have as an area of focus and priority in my own right to develop. The timeline right now tentatively is to get that through October and to work with the staff, but also work with a small subcommittee to be able to develop ways and measures that
That data, like figure out what works.
yeah, and we know that some of them are going to be given, you know, state testing is going to be a given. It has to be there. Other formative data that we have here. But I really want to clue in on how else and in what other ways are we demonstrating learning? What other ways are kids demonstrating the ability and the competencies that are delineated in that graphic, right? How are students showing that they're critical thinkers or global citizens? And those are much more difficult to be able to tease out, but important for us to pursue. So in any event, the scorecard will become a focal point for us here this fall. And I'm just looking forward to finding ways to gather other voices to be able to help move that work along. We will continue to rely on Katie Martin to help us facilitate that and give us maybe some blueprints and templates that we can follow, but something that is really our own and personalized to us. Okay. Next slide, please. So we continue to focus, or we did focus last year on personalization. That'll be something that will continue, but truly we're going to be paying attention to all four of those quadrants for learning to look authentic, competency-based, inclusive, and equitable. At the end of the day, we're one community and we want all of our students to succeed, but we're realistic and understand that different kids are further along, or in some instances, in many instances, further ahead of the standard that we've set out for ourselves. So that is something that is more or less of a carryover. We're now talking with our staff today, tomorrow, over the coming days to be able to define what our areas of focus are and how we will go about carrying on the work that we started, not just last year, but over the last several years. Next slide, please. And speaking of that, I just wanted to give you this graphic just as a visual. You know, we talked back in July about the implementation, and I think everybody understood that the implementation isn't going to be a one and done or a simple process, particularly when you're talking about making some pretty significant changes in how students learn. So last year was our year one. It really allowed us to understand the components of the framework. This will be our year two. I wanted to kind of delineate some phases school-wide. Last year was really about being student-centered and personalizing learning. Not that we've arrived, but at least it was a start and a launch. And there again, what are the demonstrations of learning? What are the demonstrations that kids are actually accomplishing these robust goals and aspirations that we have for them? And at the end of the day, one central question: how do we evaluate whether students are learning? And we know that standardized testing has a part. We understand that. But the question is, how can we do that? Because that only happens once a year, and we need to have measures along the way and over time that tell us how we're doing. Can you go back one slide? And I just here what you have is, you know, we've been working a lot in grade spans, not just in single grade levels or in single classrooms, but really as a collection of professionals. The TK2 team has worked on, and you'll see this throughout the elementary, these learning progressions. And that is basically laying out with timelines and areas of focus, the year-long curricular plans. And not that they haven't existed, they've existed, but nothing like documenting, memorializing it, and really using that as a foundational grounding work to our collaboration and our week-to-week, day-to-day even planning. So this is something where I think the power is yet to be realized. And these have been really, really instrumental in helping one grade level to the next see what learning looks like in those grade levels. There's been plenty of collaboration over the years, but we want to get down to a more succinct and specific way of looking at our practices in the classroom and across the school. So this is work that I think is very promising. It's very challenging work, but it is one that I think we'll start to see more and more of the benefits. TK2, they've been focusing a lot on the science of reading. especially the early childhood, the early literacy skills. And I could go on and on about that, but that's been a major focal point for them. In grades 3, 4, that's starting to migrate into those grade levels as well. And then in grades 5 through 8, I noted there implementation of Avid. Won't go into detail about that, but Avid, I think, is something that is a program and an approach, a series of approaches that I think are going to really help our college and career readiness that are aligned to that goal of being college and career ready. And right now, we're launching. There's a lot of enthusiasm about it, but it's still going to be something that we'll have to see how it implements. Just tomorrow morning, we're slated to be partnering with our partner from Avid to discuss what our plans are and how we go about implementing them. So way back in June, we all attended a conference, 5 through 8. Every one of those teachers in the core classrooms attended, and there was just a lot of positivity, enthusiasm, a lot of learning. But we're looking to make it actionable now, starting the school year. Next slide, please. Lastly, there's just a lot here, but I wanted to give you an overview of the things that will either continue or will be implemented this time around. I'll just highlight a few. First, an acknowledgement of CASP testing. I know that I shared those results with the board. We'll be able to dive more fully into them come next month. And our annual goal, and this was communicated to our staff today in our meeting, that based on our conversations, we'd like to see that annual growth consistently at 5%. That's our target. So we'll talk more and elaborate further on that. All of these other bullet points are really in the realm of learning and social, emotional, mental health. The idea here is to accelerate learning, to promote learning, to support students wherever they may be on that continuum. And so we have, I'll just highlight a couple. One is science. That implementation in middle school is happening. We received the last of those materials earlier today, and we have them at the ready. We have an Avid implementation, which we're very excited about. We're going to continue with that early childhood learning and that focus on being very, very differentiated based on student needs. And then very, very excited to have school counselor. We met with her for a full day yesterday just to talk about priorities, help with the onboarding. She was there today. I think it's going to be a fantastic fit for us. I think she brings some good experience and background to the role. And I think that's going to be incredibly helpful. The focal point, not exclusively, but the focal point will be grades 5 through 8. We want to start to push in the direction of informing and helping not only our students, but our families understand options, pathways to high school and beyond. And I think that's going to be a major focal point. Not to mention that that's an area that I think somebody with her background can help, because that's a very, very critical age for kids. So not to say she won't be working with other grades, that will become, especially in year 1, an area of focus. Okay, moving on. Facilities. So, we're very excited there because we've made a lot of really great improvements. And I just delineated a few. Many, many thanks to our staff, our custodial. So in case the board isn't aware, our maintenance, custodial, and transportation departments are all one and the same. So these folks are multifaceted. They're great team, great set of individuals, keeping our classrooms clean, our facilities and grounds work. And they've done a tremendous job in their own right in getting us to the start of the year. But there were things that needed attention beyond that. So you see there a few. This building, this NPR building, was painted. The entire exterior was painted. I call it our crown jewel. I think it's a phenomenal building. And it is one that needed a little bit of a facelift. So we went ahead and did that. We took care of some landscaping needs out in the front. And then the other really kind of the other highlight is, taking care of our facilities. So we resealed and maintained our asphalt surfaces, which I think were in much need. This asphalt area here in the playground was redone a few years ago, but it was important to continue to maintain and take care of our spaces. And yes, it is an investment, but it's an important one because it saves you considerable amount of money down the road in bigger repairs by taking this approach. So I'm excited that it beautifies the space, that it brings a more functionality to the space, and hopefully more of an inviting, atmosphere for families and for kids. So and as you see there, routine maintenance is something that we care very much about sustaining. So the next few slides are just pictures, that the board has seen or perhaps experienced, but very proud of that work because I think it'll only help promote pride and beautify the space. So that's our NPR, and then those are play surfaces. They were repainted, restriped, and I think they're going to be, really a point of pride, I think, for kids, and just a better place for them to play and to be. Last,
interject
yeah.
something here with, I appreciate the gardening, around the front.
Mhm.
I see the sign is still there. Haven't been involved with that. That was originally set up. The whole concept behind there was to have, there's been a decimation in the monarch butterflies. And if we get some milkweed plants interspersed throughout that garden, I'd appreciate it. Because that was the original intent. That's why that sign is there.
Yeah. I'm aware of that, and unfortunately, over the years, that area, I'm not sure exactly what went on there, but it was an area that was starting to, some of the original plants, I think, didn't make it.
Mhm.
And so right now it was a little bit of a wholesale change, but we'll look to add other spaces as well where that can be accommodated.
Well, I think that, and I think that's one of those things you got the sign out front. If you're gonna remove the sign, I get that. Or either that or beautify it because it doesn't look like it's up to snuff with what the landscaping's happened. But
Sure.
I think that there's value there, saying for the students that this is a conservation area, especially if it was around the kindergarten area, maybe even inside the quad. So that they can have that as a part of their science curriculum. Saying, I was out in our garden today, looking at eggs on our milkweed plants. And the chrysalis, they can be clipped and put in and observed
Mhm.
As a part of a curriculum as well. But that's just one of those little things that children, students can observe.
Sure.
So.
Yeah.
there's a serious
Yeah.
need for it.
Sure. No, I understand. And I thought about that as we were undertaking that project, is where and how can we continue to create spaces for there to be more of a natural or native plant environment. So next slide, attendance, obviously we haven't started the year, but 95% is really our target. And the good news is that over the last 3 months, holistically speaking, big picture, the last 3 months of the year, we were able to meet our target. And I know that was something that required a lot of work by Ms. Klinsky, Ms. Cousineau, Ms. Ramirez, and others, and teachers, of course, making that a priority. Not that ever it wasn't, but we needed to recommit and re-message. And so that is going to be really a focal point of our year. It was in our welcome back message, stressing the importance of being here and regular attendance. And it will continue to be an area of focus. It was one that we discussed with our school counselor yesterday as being an area of focus. So in any event, that's something that will be at the forefront. And lastly, just a list of upcoming events. We had our professional learning and collaboration today and tomorrow. Middle school orientation via Zoom tomorrow, 6:30. Thursday, we have a TKK orientation, and our first day of school will be next Tuesday. So we are excited. Back to school night is going to be coming up. So we're excited. We're excited. And I think it'll be a great opportunity for us to reconnect with our students and families. So if there are any questions or comments, let's gladly take them.
Approximately what percent have already gone through the re-enrollment process?
I don't have that figure in front of me. I can certainly look into it.
That's not where our enrollment figures come from. That's from something else.
No, our re-enrollment, no, those are enrollment projections. So that is based on new enrollment, and the re-enrollment is it serves a bit of a different purpose. It does, of course, affirm that the students will continue with us,
Right.
but we have a very high level of retention, and our families are very good about telling us if they're going to be moving on. So we keep that as separate list, independent of that.
So what you sent out this week, is that what you were asking about total enrollment 580?
Yeah.
It's
It's not from this, it's from
It's from rolling over and
rolling
projections,
over and.
as well as new enrollment that's coming in to the district. That's correct.
I guess I just wanted to ask a little bit more follow-up on the framework for the future. And this may be the literally in discussion right now, but the personalization. So I was wondering if we're intentionally like spending more than just a year so that we really take a good bite at that apple instead of a nibble, or if it was something where we were going to try to circle around, more frequently. But to me, there's pros and cons both ways. So I just didn't know if we were intentionally doing that, or if that's literally what we're meaning with our staff of saying, do we want to dive all in to make sure that we've accomplished personalization before we move on to another topic? Or are we going to do a little bit of all and then recircle or refocus where we feel we need more focus, after we do a full rotation?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't know that I have a simple answer for you. Here's what I will say. We wanted to launch in personalization because we wanted to follow that thread of being student-centered, right? And being very attentive to what individual students need. That said, you're absolutely right. It can't just be a one-year process. It can't be a flyover. So we want to keep that at the focal point, as a focal point. We know that all of these four work in concert with each other, so I know we're always going to be circling back. The idea of being personalized is just to try to maintain a focus. So I would argue that, or I would say to you that that'll most likely carry over into this year, and that because I think, from the staff perspective, I don't want to send the message from my end that we're veering off course and moving on to something different, or that we're done.
Yeah.
No, I think that's why I made it a point to highlight just some of the work that was already in progress from last year that will absolutely carry over into this year. So, but that's really what the discussion, not so much today, but more so tomorrow, and as we launch the year, we'll focus more around. And I think it'll become even more important once individual grade levels start to meet, because I think every grade level is in a bit of a different place when it comes to that idea of personalizing learning for students. I can tell you that in our lower grades, that through small group work, flexible rotations, we're in a good place when it comes to narrowing down to the kid and learning level. And I'm not suggesting that that's not true elsewhere, but I'm just really trying to highlight that intentional effort over the last year and a half, almost 2 years, has been done, and we're still not done. We're just seeing some results start to bear out. And so I suspect that it'll remain an area of focus for us this year.
Another question that I have is regarding AVID. I guess I'm curious, and I don't know enough about the program, because we used to have AVID, but I thought it was more of an extra class.
Yes.
And so I was trying to figure out if that's still the approach, where it's like one of those MTSS or extra, not elective, it's not an elective, but another Common Core class. or if it was something that was being integrated into each core grade or each homeroom class, or how is it actually being distributed to the kids? Are they learning it in their every classroom, or are they learning it in a separate elective?
So that's you've just hit the design, the two design approaches. One is through the elective, the other one is school-wide. The one that you described with where it goes across classes and across content areas. And that's where we're moving forward. We want to make sure that the approaches to AVID are felt consistently. One, because we feel that every student can benefit or will benefit from it. But the other one is also the staff really wanted to have a united front. They wanted to be consistent. They wanted to have coherence across classrooms. And then lastly, we also know that whether a student is exceeding, a grade level and has full aspirations, or their parents and family have full aspirations to being college going, we want to be able to make sure that they come away with those organizational tools, those executive functioning skills to be able to really succeed in that space. So I think for us as a small school, where we are now, it's better to move school-wide. And because there's staff buy-in and enthusiasm, it makes it that much easier to move in that direction.
Well, I'm fully in favor of that. There was a period of time. There was a period of groups getting right school. There was a period of time in my school experience that I was so confident with every eighth grader that was promoted and going to their freshman year past what was then the college or the high school exit exam straight out of Mesa. And I think also as a part of that, what needs to be built in that, and what I've seen, is that from their earliest days, that we need to foster an expectation that our students are going to be forever learners, and that there's going to be something not just beyond Mesa, but beyond high school, that they'll have an educational program and path, and they should seek that. Because I've seen that with students here at Mesa, to where there's a couple of students that I know personally that they didn't see beyond eighth grade. And so whatever we can do all along the way to foster the fact that they have the skills and the capacity and contribute to the high school graduation rate, and even beyond that, that the skills that they're developing now will carry on into their adult life. And that just comes with the daily fostering of that mentality and expectation that that's how they're going to go. It's not that, you're just putting in time, filling that chair for the year. And then when you're done with K through 8, then you go off someplace else and you never make it anywhere. I want all the students, this is me speaking now, is that for them to feel that we're expecting them to do better, and that they have the capacity to do great things throughout their life, throughout their adult life.
So I'll just say, being an alumni of this place from a million years ago, we actually, doubling down on what Mr. Sullivan said, is that basically every student there, we always felt that we would, we were given the basics to succeed and beyond high school and everything else. So when I did actually get to the next level, it was all the concrete things were there, and Mesa really prepared us for that back in the day. It's great that you guys are going to do that thoroughly from the little guys all the way up to the end, because it's so important to install that person. Because everybody who I went to school with pretty much felt that empowerment, of being able to do whatever they had the power to do whatever they wanted to do.
We want to foster that environment, and we also know that again, depending on, we have a continuum of kids consistently. Rio Mesa happens to be our primary school, where the majority of our kids attend, not exclusively, but on a regular basis, consistently, year after year, cohort after cohort. We hear about those kids who come from Mesa being just, really top achievers over there. And I'm very proud. I wasn't here for all of it, but we're certainly all proud. I know plenty of staff here who have been and taught those kids and saw them from the early grades up. And we want to continue that legacy, A, and B, we want to continue to make sure that there are more and more students who are at that caliber. And I think right now that's what this implementation of AVID, the way that we're doing it now school-wide, is intended to do. It's intended to support all kids, because we also know that while certain households are readily and regularly talking about college aspirations and what's going to happen in high school and beyond, we know that that may not exist everywhere for every student. And so that's where it's an opportunity for us to fill a little bit of that gap and be able to prepare kids with the tangible skills to be able to succeed in high school and beyond. Rio Mesa and all the Oxnard Union high schools, comprehensive ones at least, have pathways through AVID. So if the student wants to be a part of that, great. Then they'll have an elective then that'll allow them to receive that dedicated support. But for us, we don't want to let our students not even know what AVID is, so that by the time they get there, they have a difficult time accessing even the elective. We want to be able to hand them off more and more prepared. So, we're really focusing, just to give you an overview, we're focusing very, very intently on organization and really the stance of a student. And within each discipline, there will be more conversation about what it means for math, what it means for science. The other one is focused note-taking, part of that organization. How do I take in information? So I'm just giving you two broad areas of focus, but it's so important because we want kids to be independent and be able to take ownership over their own learning. And part of that is being organized and at the ready to take in information and review it at a later date. So those are just two simple ways or starting points that we've proposed. We'll get into more of those details tomorrow and solidify those plans so that we have a working set of agreements as we launch the year. And then we'll look to expand from there.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Merritt. So now we'll move on to the board members' reports and communications. Has there been any correspondence to the board? Okay. What about any board members' reports or communications? It's pretty quiet because school is in session. And then any board members' interests or concerns? My only one, as we start at the beginning of the year, I always have lots of comments, but the one I'm thinking of, we always, especially beginning of the year, talk about parent volunteers and participation in our community. I would like us to make a more focused effort in that. So instead of just broadly saying, we'd love any volunteers, if we could think about specific things. We'd love anybody who has free time or is retired to read to kids in the library. We would love anybody who knows about botany to walk the kids around during science and talk about plants. We would love anybody who's a local author to come share their book with the school. Like if we could give specific examples of how we would love the community to help support our students and our teachers, our community, I think we could have better participation, because a lot of people would love to volunteer, but they don't know how. And they don't know what the school needs. And so it's hard just to say, sure, I'll volunteer when I don't know what I'm raising my hand for. But if I know, oh, I have that skill, I can fill that need. Especially we have so many retired teachers in our district that live in our district, letting them know that we would love people just to read to our kindergartners, or we would love, them to do a math game with whatever, beads. If we know that we're just looking for people to help with math games, reading support, I do think the community would participate, but they need to know specifics.
And I agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly. As something I've been asking for years and years and years, that we have such a wealth in our community that would be willing to come in to do those things. And if we let them know specifically, this is what we need you to do, they would do that. It also means that I know that at the beginning of the school year, teachers will have out there how many volunteers they'd like in their classroom to do certain things. But usually that's K through 3, and then it kind of dissipates after, fourth on up. But those teachers too can call on volunteers that can speak to certain things. For example, you've got a tremendous engineering and science background. Just be able to volunteer to come into a sixth grade science class, talk about certain things. And this is not to speak ill of any of our junior high teachers or anything. It's to augment. That's all.
To support. Yeah.
It's a support. And if it was a once a month thing or a once a week thing, that those things are fine. It would bring meaning to those people's lives as well, as to what they're doing.
And I will say, as somebody who has done that type of volunteer in a classroom, the teachers do love it. And what's really lovely is that the kids can hear a very similar message, but from a different party, and somebody who does it in the real world potentially than just somebody who's teaching about it. So even though the teachers literally may be teaching the same kind of thing or the same topic, sometimes to hear it from a different person or a different perspective actually makes it sink in a little bit more, like it's a real skill or it's a real data that they might need in life, or be interested in that they weren't aware of before.
Yeah,
I mean, I will,
that topic about specificity and being a little bit more, I'm gonna call it a call to action, right? Like, what is it that we're looking at individuals, starting with our parent family groups, to come do or to come help or support with, because then I would agree as well. There's more likely or greater. Now we know that there are certain things that are for sure going to require volunteers, and I don't want to minimize this either. Whether it's coaching, taking up a club, things of that nature. In fact, I put that out there as part of my and our welcome to just say that what we're asking you to help us with and support. But beyond that, I think it's going to have to be an ongoing conversation as things surface or as new possibilities present. And one final point, you're making the broader point about community maybe that has already had young kids come through our system, through Mesa, or individuals who may not be connected to us. And I think that's going to be a whole nother topic of discussion for myself to be able to think through that. So that's definitely on our radar, and we will make our best effort to be more specific and pointed about what kind of support we need.
Okay, well then can I get a motion? Go ahead. Yeah.
I've got 2 more items here. One is, as I was looking over the materials for today, and I was looking over the maps of the school, is that room still it's labeled the computer room, but when was the last time computers were in it? And is it time to change the name of that room? I'm going to put that out there.
For me, but we'll discuss that a little later.
Yeah.
It's part of the right now working title is a STEAM lab, but no, it is not a computer room. And when we conclude, I'll start to show you what that space can look like.
Okay. The second thing is, just to inform you, I'm going to plan on being here the first day of school. So
I'm going to be in the welcome tunnel as well.
okay. Perfect.
I'm always here.
I usually go to every classroom.
Oh, I go to work after everybody comes in, but I welcome everybody as they come in.
And this year I don't have a conflict with my own kids in school, so that's good news.
Okay, well then, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I have a second. Julie, it's going to be you because Neil's not on anymore.
Second. That's what I was going for.
Okay, any comments, questions? I did not have any specific questions. My only request And this was a very big, because it was 2 months, like for the check register for June and July. So the financial numbers are quite large for the POs and the check registers. So I would have just loved a little bit more specificity in the memo, because then I'm like literally getting my calculator out and adding things together and going, oh, why is this so much? And then I'm looking at the different categories and like, oh, well, that makes sense. Oh, it's the beginning of the year. That makes sense. But it just took me a little extra time to try to do all that math. But it, like the big ones, obviously a little, but especially in this, there were several that really added up to over $100,000 for like a category or a provider. So just like the large dollar amounts would have been really helpful for me to save time.
Do you want to set a?
I don't
You're
think
looking for
so.
More detail.
Because it's more of like the percentage. No, like literally if it would have just said, instead of just saying kind of what this is, if it would have given specific examples like that the Ventura County schools, we paid $152,000. The Cisco food, we paid $117,000. The County of Education, we paid approximately $230,000, because those are all the beginning of the year big fixed amounts to set in these contracts and to buy stuff for the cafeteria. So, but they were very large, so literally just commas, because that's all I make notes and all the big ticket items.
List 2 or 3 major items.
Major items, yeah. The topic or the vendor and the approximate amount even, yeah. But I would have just appreciated that when the saving element time.
Okay.
But that's my only comment on the consent. Okay, then all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And then 2 absent. Okay, so then we can move on to the public hearing. And so we have a public hearing for the initial proposal from the Mesa Union Teachers Association to the Mesa Union School District, and any public comments. So we'll open that at 7:34. Are you turning on the light? I was like, I know I'm getting dark over here. I'm taking notes.
I figured it was 2.
I was like, I don't know where.
I know where the light switch is. They're over here. They would have been on.
Okay, so hearing no comments from the public, I'll close that at 7:35, and then I'll open the public hearing. Yeah.
There's still, there's no attendees.
There's no attendees, but so I think a minute is okay. So next we have the public hearing on the initial proposal from the Mesa Union support team to the Mesa Union School District and any public comment, and I will open that at 7:35. But yes, we have 0 attendees. So unless somebody chimes in right now.
Right.
Oof, 7 through 6. All right.
Just want to make sure everybody had
An opportunity. All right, so then we can move on to actions. So I need a motion for the consideration of approval of the Hatch and Cesario Legal Service Agreement for the 2023-2024 school year.
I move that we adopt or that we approve. Where's that agreement? It was on my other screen. Anyway, that we approve the agreement between Hatch and what was the other person's name? Cesario. For 2023-2024 school year.
I'll second it.
Excellent. Any comments, questions? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And 2 absent.
Not
Oh.
that Rachel was prepared.
I agreed on that comment.
That's going to be my other comment. Those Rachel really good.
And so next I'll need a motion for the district administration that the Board of Trustees approve the 2023-2024 consolidated application report known as CARS.
I move that we approve the 2023-2024 consolidated application report.
Excellent. Any comments, questions?
My only comment on this, I think this was the one item that I didn't have a link to.
Yeah, it wasn't
see what it
available the
was.
first day.
Mhm.
It was just available last night.
Yeah, this is a pretty standard. Hold on a minute. And Ms. Peterson is here, but I think we can take it. But this is a very standard application that submitted from the district to, and in fact, the federal government for available funding. And it's based on a lot of it is generated by demographic criteria of the district. And so there are specific programs that allow us to receive funding, including the titles.
Anyway, is this different than the CONAP?
It's the CONAP.
It is the
It
same.
is the formula of the CONAP.
Yeah.
I know that those are very involved, and so I give my thanks to whoever was involved in preparing that.
That would be
Ms. Peterson. In a
former
former life, I was much more involved.
but these days,
Peterson
Senator office really take that on, and where we
play
play
a part,
Leanne and myself and our staff is in just making sure that we're getting data in our system so that they can more readily access it. So, but in terms of the putting together of the application, this is Ms. Peterson and her team.
All those in favor? Aye. 3 and 2 absent. Okay, so next is the consideration of approval of the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding between the County of Ventura and the Mesa Union School District for the 2023-2024 school year.
I move that we approve the 2023-2024 MOU between BCOE and Mesa Union School District.
Go ahead and second that.
Okay, any comments, questions?
Yes, I had some questions. I'm sorry I didn't get the call ahead. Dr. Ramirez and Andor. How many is the line items that were here? It's showing that there's a typical annual cost per student. Is $12,000. But how many students do we have involved?
So
Just even counseling.
there's been some changes. Previously, the county held all of this money within the SELPA. It was never distributed out. It was based on need. Due to legislative changes and things like that, this money is coming directly now to districts. And so that's why the SELPA has developed these agreements so that if we are in need of those services, we can contract with them. Or the SpareNet question is on the agenda as well. We use these monies to pay for those services. In 22-23, we didn't have any services that were needed at Mesa. And so that money just was held at Mesa. And then we're able to use it to offset some of the social emotional services contracts that we have with the county.
And so is this something that's kept in the budget?
Yes,
Um,
it's new to 22-23 was the first year that money was distributed out to districts. Previously, the SELPA held it, and it was predominantly used for residential placements of students throughout the county, but some changes took place within the legislation, and so it's now being passed through to all of the various districts, and so we receive it directly.
When you say residential placements, that's where students placed in different school districts.
And normally out of state, there's a few in-state programs, but mostly it's been out of state. But we've never, Mesa's never had a student placed that I'm aware of.
Right,
None that I can have any record of. All right. Those are my questions.
Then all those in favor?
Aye.
3 and 2 absent. So next we have the consideration of approval of the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding between Asperitas Local Education Agency, Ventura County Office of Education, and SELPA. I don't know what that. is that-
Special education.
Special, I was looking for it somewhere down below. So if I could get a motion to approve.
I move that we approve the MOU between Aspirant Local Education Agency, Ventura County Office of Education, and SELPA.
Can I get a second? Okay, any other questions, concerns?
I have questions on this one too. Maybe I'm just being ignorant on this, but this seemed to be a little bit different, and maybe we just have a brief explanation as to what this is. Because the school pays for all of the services, and are these for after-school services or in-school services, or how are these delivered? Yes.
So these are services, this is what we have traditionally called wraparound services. So these are services above and beyond what the school district would typically be able to provide. So this is for instances where a student's needs exceed what might be school-based content. And that's why you see another set of services that effectively cross the bridge over into the home. Did I answer your question?
Well, yes. For example, I'm familiar with services, and I'm a father of special needs kids, and we receive services like these in the home, but they were funded in the past via tri-counties and not through the school.
Correct.
And they were the funding authority. However, the school has the financial responsibility. So that's what kind of caught my eye.
So that's where this gets, so Tri-County, for example, would retain the responsibility up to age 3. Once a student turns age 3, they become the obligation of the district. This specific set of services is mostly in the realm of mental health and emotional well-being. And it would be in the instance of a student that would have a very specific set of concerns and needs that would require a completely different set. It's very atypical, let me start there.
Right.
And require this other set of services where there would be a liaison from the district to the home and back, and effectively a case carrier above and beyond what we ordinarily be expected to provide. So it's pretty rare, I think, in the grand scheme of things, but it is something that falls on the district because our responsibility is to ensure free and appropriate public education. So under that premise, we would need to be able to provide that level of service for an individual student that is identified as being in need of that.
This ties to the item that was just approved as well. Again, previously districts didn't see these costs. They didn't see these agreements because they were agreements that were held at the SELPA level and the SELPA paid directly. But because those monies, mental health monies, are no longer going to the SELPA, they're coming directly to the district. That's why districts are now required to contract for those services individually rather than at the SELPA level.
So I'm not crazy in that I haven't seen this before.
You're
not crazy.
You're not seeing it.
Okay, and all those in favor? Aye. No 2 absent. Okay, and then also, if somebody can make a motion to receive the 2023-2024 Golden Valley Charter School Budget.
Sure.
They move to receive the 2023-2024 Golden Valley Charter School Budget.
I second.
Any questions, concerns? I guess it's just receipt, so I don't want to ask too many questions of it, but I did just notice that it appears like they're not fully funded, like they will have some deficits and things, so. It's just one of those things, like many schools will, but a majority was funded, it's like 88%.
Mhm.
So it was still high, but it was just one of those things.
They have a huge surplus, and so part of that is spending down that surplus.
Yeah.
They actually have a very enviable problem in some ways.
They
They
have
have to spend down their surplus
or risk losing it. So
they
they
have to spend down planned.
So they're trying to spend a lot.
Correct. They are
spending because they have.
Parent-
Carry that.
I
They-
was, my only comment or concern about this was just make sure that Tammy was looking over the budget and make sure there's, because I looked at it and it seemed like it's inspected what we do, within those kind of parameters. But I'm hoping that the financial person is spending the key right.
One,
That, Tammy's office used to be their SBA, or their back office. But they changed that about 10 years
Okay.
in their MOU. They want to separate out.
Yeah.
And so they hired somebody else. So I just want to make sure that we have an eye on
Sure.
we
it.
do.
Yeah,
Tammy's been involved.
with them, and I won't speak on this, but rather to say that their financial position right now continues to be very solid. Just for everybody's clarification. My position, the superintendent position here, sits on the. So it's something that I receive quite a bit of information and correspondence relative to all of their operations and their budget being a part of that.
And all those in favor? Aye. Two absent. Okay. So then, next is the consideration of ratification of the service agreement with BC Rincon Construction Incorporated for the asphalt resealing and restriping. I can get a motion to,
I move that we ratify the service agreement with construction for the asphalt.
I'll second it.
and so this was for all the beautiful pictures, that we saw in our superintendent report.
Yeah.
And I will say the back basketball / volleyball courts were in desperate need of that. So while the main playground was redone a couple of years ago, that back area was not. And so to bring both areas current, I think is a great improvement.
Yeah. Yes. Agreed.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next we have the consideration of ratification of the invoice from Francisco Ramos for landscaping.
I'll move to the consideration for the ratification of the invoice of Francisco Ramos for landscaping.
Just on consideration.
I know.
There's two ratifications in there, so. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
And then concerns or questions, ones was just raised, like obviously that's approved, but then just to look into butterfly habitat friendly
Yep.
for the next time we do landscaping. Okay, then all those in favor? Aye. 3 and 2 absent. So next we have the consideration of approval of the TK through 8th, 2023 to 2024 bell schedule.
Okay. I move to approve the TK 8 2023-2024 bell schedule.
I second that motion.
Any comments, questions?
My only question is, I'm gonna
I
ask,
love that you do.
we make sure and verify that total minutes and that will pass our audit.
Yes.
Okay. This is part of our fiduciary responsibility. Sure.
Yes, and Ms.
Peterson takes a look at all that and it's
part of our audit process. Yeah, our internal audit process.
Okay, then all those in favor? Aye. 3 and 2 absent. Next is the consideration of approval of the 2023-2044 Mason Union School Safety Plan.
I move that we approve the 2023-2024 Mason School Safety.
Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
And then a comment I heard raised earlier was that just that we do change this plan during the year to update names of spaces, or there's also like teachers listed in certain spaces just to make sure that it's current. So while we're approving the current version, if there are changes needed throughout the year, please bring it back and we'll ratify it as needed. All those in favor?
Well,
Or-
one moment, one of the things that, okay, I looked specifically at the shooter thing, and I loved what it said. As to our response, but I didn't, the response on that was to run, hide, flight, which is the appropriate response. But I didn't see in the plan, maybe I missed that, was all on those diagrams that where are these kids supposed to run to? They're all up here, which is kind of, but there wasn't the evacuation side.
That,
That all went
this way.
that way.
I
We're trying-
agree. It was a
we're
different
trying to
map.
throw on that.
So
In the event, and this is the hard part about, I'm conscious of what I'm about to say. The reality is that in the case of an act of assailant, such as an act of shooting, the truth of the matter is, there is no congregation policy.
Good.
It is 100% to flee for safety. That is based on the most, up-to-date, information, collaboration with, local law enforcement. And in the past, I've shared that we're part of a collaborative that's going to, that work will start. So there will be no, immediate plans for reunification that way. It is a completely different response entirely to any other emergency.
Well, I was so excited to read about that, and I'm grateful to hear that because I think it'll save far more lives. But I also saw on the downside is that because there's no, I can't account for everybody. That's, and I can't release students to their parents and, where's Johnny or Susie or whoever. And something they're concerned picked them up already, that we don't have that kind of control, but safety's got to be paramount. And so I was grateful for that. And so I don't know how that training or instruction goes. And I also look at places to where students can hide safely on campus or in the surrounding area.
Yeah, it's ongoing. It's ongoing, and I realize
it's very disconcerting for all of us, as parent myself.
very disconcerting to have to consider the possibilities. But we've been orienting around being very truthful with ourselves and being very consistent and working lockstep with law enforcement. And what law enforcement is telling us are the most are the lessons learned from these unfortunate yet increasing events. So we will continue to stay engaged, but it is something that I'm afraid to say is a reality at this moment.
I think the event is going to be extraordinarily rare. Like you have a better chance of being struck by lightning and bitten by a shark than you do of being involved in an active shooter scenario at school. But being prepared for that, it's a requisite on our part to make sure that we have that. The only thing that I might add is I think specifically in our kindergarten areas, is I think all the kindergarten rooms have secondary doors. There's 2 doors in or out, except for one room, and that's adjacent to Mr. Kuklinski's office. There's 2 ways to egress because they're probably our most vulnerable students. But that was my only comment.
This is all incredibly hard to both talk about, to inform, and to develop action plans when you're talking about now 5-year-olds. And that's a reality. We will continue to make this a priority. And I mentioned there's a larger portion that is interagency in here in Ventura County with all local responders, fire, sheriff, local police. For us, the sheriff's department and fire are the 2 most vital agencies because they're the ones that have jurisdiction over the district. But in an emergency such as this one, really any responding agency.
that's available would be one call upon. to respond. So that's why
the interagency work teams
have to be resolved. So that's it's good work, but it's very difficult work to undertake for everyone because the response and the responses period have evolved so rapidly as these assailants have found more and more creative ways of doing one.
Well, and this plan covers so many different topics, and that's why it's important because there are other things like fires. You know, we're surrounded by orchards, we're surrounded by agriculture and high winds. You know, we have percent and winds. So to make sure that we're prepared for all these different types of emergencies, and that's why the response plan for a lot of them is similar, but is great because if there were too many different types of response plans, then it's hard for all of the staff to remember in that event, you know, and that's where you're planning in the calm for the chaos. What I always talk to people about is we've got to write these plans and we've got to think through all of these hard things because we have to do it while we're calm and we're logical and we can think through all these issues as opposed to those chaotic.
And I'll just add one thing because this is the other part of this is having our infrastructure be in good order. And so this gives me a good opportunity to mention that, you know, just part of our regular routine maintenance also includes safety checks. So over the summer, we have 5-year certification for our sprinkler system, for our hydrants, and the fire pump that are important to make sure that these safety checks are involved. So anyway, the idea is that safety is always at the forefront. It's sprawling, it's dynamic, but there are things that we have already proactively done to be able to make ourselves more confident that our responses are going to be good.
Okay, then all those in favor?
Aye.
3, 2 absent. Okay, so next is the consideration of acceptance of the quarterly report on the Williams uniform complaint regarding the textbooks and instructional materials, teacher vacancy, misassignment, and facilities conditions. Can I get a motion to accept?
I move that we accept the quarterly report on the Williams uniform complaint.
I'll second it.
Okay, and just as a comment, there were no complaints made.
Which is
It's just what we love to hear. All those in favor?
aye.
Aye. 2 absent. Okay, so next we have the consideration approval of the purchase of the science materials for middle school. Can I hear a motion?
I move to approve of the purchase of science materials for middle school.
Second.
I'll second the motion.
Any comments or questions?
Are these the one you said that just came in?
Well, but we approved them in the last
Right.
meeting. So now it's just the purchase order that we're,
And we had
we had a public
most
hearing.
of the textbooks were already, actually all the textbooks were already here. These are
Like the hands-on
Sure.
kits.
That's not
Yeah.
free.
Excellent. Well, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Awesome. And then we have just the first read. So this is information for the June 2023 board policy revision sections. We're covering oversight of the county charter schools and agenda and meeting materials. So we can read those and then talk about them next trip or next meeting. And then I need a consideration for approval of the field trip request for the Catalina Islands Marine Institute, known as CME at Toyon Bay. This is a 7th grade.
I would love to approve the field trip requested at the Catalina Islands Marine Institute at Toyon.
And I will second that.
I'm so grateful that we do this. That this is one of those programs that are life-changing in students' lives. That bring the life of science and math. This is the reason why we do it. So I am so in favor of doing it. And I also know that there's at least one recent, there's I think 8 chaperones looking for. I know that parents are going to want to be involved. But I know that there might be some steam so to say.
Sure.
Okay, then all those in favor? Aye. Okay, then next we have personnel. So I need a motion to consider the approval for the board to authorize the following teachers for the 2023-24 school year in accordance with Education Code 4426B. And that's for Cindy Davis, Patrice McKenna, and Shannon Roberson.
I move that we authorize Steve Davis, Patrice McKenna, and Shannon Roberson to operate the positions as outlined.
I'll second it.
Any comments, questions? Okay, then all those in favor? Aye. And then next we have the consideration of approval of the hiring of, is it Mariela India Ramirez as school counselor? Can I get a motion?
I move to approve of the hiring of Mariela Inda Ramirez for a school counselor.
I second the motion.
Comments, questions?
Great, she's here.
Okay, then all those in favor? Aye. 3, 2, okay. Next, I need a motion for the consideration of approval of the hiring of the following classified staff, Myra Armenta for the after-school activities leader.
I move that we approve the hiring of Myra Armenta as an after-school school activities leader.
Second the motion.
Any comments, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
2, okay. So next we just have items for future consideration, which will be the unaudited actuals, the GAN limit resolution, and discussion of the CAST and CAST results from the spring of 2023. And our next meeting will be Tuesday, September 19th, 2023, 6 p.m. I'm assuming in the NPR.
Yes.
Then I adjourn the meeting at 8:04.
So, we'll never get back to that.